Hello, everyone. Bring y'all in a little closer. Oh, that's perfect. Hello, welcome. We're waiting for Chanel to join us in just a little bit. Awesome. And then Chanel, just go ahead and send the request. Perfect. Hold on one second. Go. Hey, how are
Hi,
you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Doing good. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yes, yes. Thank you for having
Of
me.
course. I'm trying to. I know there's a way that you can pin comment. Awesome. So, we are here today with Chanel from Jolly Co. Oh, I didn't do the tag right. I got to do the underscore. Okay, I'll fix that. Well,
Oh, yes.
um, and this is just part of what I'm trying to do going forward. There are so many wonderful Instagram accounts, in specific, like um, at least Black, but definitely BIPOC centered, inclusive centered sex education, sex health, sexual wellness, sex therapy, um, platforms that are out there. And I'm just interested in us having as many conversations about these topics that I know that we both find important as
Yeah.
possible. And with the belief that there's a piece from Adrienne Marie Brown's Emergent Strategy where she says the right people are always in the conversation at the right time. And so I
Mm,
sort of put that energy out there that the right people that are here or that may come across it because we're going to post it to IGTV afterwards
awesome. Yeah.
are going to hear something new, hear something different, or hear something that clicks for them for a different period of time. So, with that being said, I am Dr. Nikki Coleman at Dr. Nikki Knows, and I am a licensed psychologist, and my practice focuses specifically on Black women's relational wellness, of which sexuality and sexual wellness is oftentimes an intimate part of that. And I also work with couples who are struggling or have challenges in really creating and maintaining the sort of intimacy that they want to have in their relationships. And when I say I work with Black women, I work with Black women across the gender spectrum, across the queer spectrum, across the age and social economic status, class status, all of that status. I always say I am a Black woman. I love Black women. I love having positive, healthy, loving relationships with Black women. I just think that we are the blueprint. So so with that in mind, I'm gonna always direct folks to the post that's in on my account that has your full bio. Direct them definitely to your account that they can get to know you really well. But I would like for you to introduce yourself. What are the things that you are passionate about? Who are you? Whatever you want to share.
Sure. So first, thank you for having me. I'm
Yeah.
very excited to be here. I'm Chanel Jolie Marshall. I have two first names, Chanel Jolie.
Mm,
Either or both are fine. And so that's where Jolie Co comes from. I just took the second first name out.
got
So I am based in DC now,
okay.
from Atlanta. There's no T in Atlanta. And and I am a sexologist, and I started out as a sex researcher first,
Okay.
doing research around Black women's sexuality from
Mm-hmm.
a historical standpoint to see what is different, what has not changed, the changes that caused the differences in
Mm-hmm.
Black women's sexuality, i.e., enslavement, i.e., all of the things that happen once getting to, I center the United States
Okay.
specifically. Um, So I like to be sure, because I know things are different in different places,
Yes.
but for the United States specifically. And just like talking about myths and stereotypes around Black women's sexuality that either still persist, where do we see them, all kinds of different things. But I wanted to use that research to, one, challenge the status of sex ed, the lack thereof, or lack thereof, but also get people to think about their own sexual health and knowledge and their relationship to sex and sexuality.
Yes.
How did you even learn about it? Because that, that's a foundation for, everything else, all the things, right? So I wanted to kind of tackle that, and that's probably what I will continue to do. I start my PhD next month, and so I'm trying to join you, Dr. Nikki, in the Doctor Club. I'm trying to give you a few years. But I'm hoping to continue that work into the program. I've had my business Jolly Co. for about 15 years now.
Awesome.
And it's been amazing. I've been able to talk at different universities, be a guest lecturer, sit on panels, all kinds of things. And it's important for me to be a Black woman specifically in this space.
Yes.
Because when I started out, I didn't see a lot of research around Black sexuality. I felt like I did not see a lot of Black sex educators. I'm 37, so you're talking about, in the 90s, 2000s, where I'm trying to figure out things, and all I had was Dr. Ruth, like most of us, or Sue Johansson in some places. Not even everybody knows who that is.
Right.
So, and they are older white women, they were older white women when we were little. So, even though they were
older white women.
Right. I mean, I don't know how that happens, but whatever, right? And so, so that kind of got me thinking, like, maybe I can be helpful here in this space. And it's definitely turned into my life's work. And additionally, I do HIV education and testing in the DC area. I teach other people how to be HIV testers, take them through all the steps, how to counsel people, how to actually perform the different tests. And I do a lot of clinician-facing work as far as new technology and new cultural competencies for clinicians, and as well as community work. So lots of hats.
Amazing. That is awesome. What is the PhD gonna do for you, Chanel Jolly? What?
My friend was like, you don't need it, right? And I was like, I understand that because I am doing what I wanted to, and that's all I asked for. I wanted to do this work, and I've created that lane for myself. However, I'm thinking about the lofty goals and the things that I want to do in the future. And a lot of times, and this is gonna sound sucky, but you understand this, there are institutions and systems in place that's not gonna listen to me unless I have PhD behind my name.
Yep.
So am I doing it to be strategic? Absolutely. Do I think it will help with some things? Okay, sure. If I want to ever be on TV or something, it's always like Dr. Jolie sounds better than comma MS or master's degree. Ain't nobody saying that, right? So it's strategic, and also, I mean, there are only what did I put? 3.1% of doctoral degrees are awarded to Black women, and listen, it's gonna be another 0.000 when I graduate. Right, exactly. I'm gonna just add to it, So there's several reasons, but
and I asked that question intentionally because I assumed that was the answer. So just for everybody that's here with us and watching, Chanel Jolene and I have never had a conversation, so this is all fresh and new. What I find really affirming and just like deeply affirming is when you see somebody's platform and you see they're a Black woman. For me, there's always just this inherent resonance. There's like such a beauty in the ability for Black women to connect with other Black women. There's so much of our experiences that are the same, right? No matter how,
Yeah.
we're all individual people, and we are all coming to this work
Right.
for our very specific reasons and with our lenses on it. One, that diversity is beautiful.
Yeah.
But two, the sort of universality in the experience is always just, it feels so warm and so good.
It does.
But I asked that question because also just to have people who may be listening, I don't know, there may be other aspiring clinicians or sexologists or sex therapists that watch this, and to recognize that as long and as until we are sort of connected to or embedded in systems, you do have to find ways to navigate them
Yeah.
to be able to meet the goals that you have for yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it goes from, how you physically show up in the world, the language that you use, what you call your programming. You may or may not be able to get funding or grants or things because it has the word sex in it, or you focusing on Black, like you just never know.
You never know.
So it can be wild.
It can.
It can be wild
It can
out
be
here.
wild for sure.
It can.
So I want to sort of I have some questions, but definitely let's continue to make this conversational. You've really gotten into a couple of them. I do want to get into, like I said, let's talk about inclusive sex ed, and I think that that's important in really defining what that is and then why that is. Why is it important? I'll share a little bit about how I started in this whole journey field. Is one, I was always sort of sexually precocious, like just curious. My mother read a lot of romance novels, and I was an early reader. So I used to sneak and read her romance books. Girl, why did I have the books like this? Like inside.
Not in another book. No, you didn't.
She didn't know what I was doing, right? I was not as slick as I thought I was. So I would read stuff, and it was back in the day where there was a lot of historical romance where it doesn't get that explicit. But I was just very aware, like something is happening here. What's this member and what's tingling?
Right.
I want to know.
What is a heaving bosom? What is?
Right. And what else? Some kind of whatever they used to call the garment that he would rip the bodice, and I was like, "What is a bodice?" I'm like, very, very early on, just curious.
Yeah.
And then when I knew, like pretty early on, adolescence, college, that psychology was going to be the road for me. But so interestingly enough, I had sort of it was called a practicum, but it was an undergraduate, like baby practicum. And I chose to do it with the YWCA, which has always been a bit more progressive, right? It's sex ed, it's sex positivity, but I don't even think before that was a term. And so in my practicum, I was doing sex ed in public schools in New Orleans.
Wow.
And baby, they just threw me into the fire.
Oh. And then you were like,
I need more training for this. I feel like I need a buddy to go with me.
Right.
But they just threw me in. And I mean, I had the big suitcase that had my little, penis diagrams in there, and all the little pieces, and here's the vulva and inside the vagina, and doing the demonstrations for proper condom placement, like the whole thing. And little did I really didn't, I was like, this is exciting and scary, but this is really important. And having to do that in mixed gendered settings, sometimes the teacher would stay in the room, so the teacher has all of their stuff that they're inputting. Some of it was wrong, some of it was highly religious, and like having to navigate all of that was how I kind of started in this whole area.
Wow.
But the point is, that wasn't naturally embedded in the school. I had to be invited as an extracurricular, as an additional
Yeah.
programming, and it was one
Yeah.
session, right? So you go
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's it. And so I would like to really hear from you about like why is that woefully insufficient? What does really comprehensive sex ed look like to you? What does inclusive sex ed mean? Like, let's just get into all of that.
Sure. I will start out saying, if you think kids, children, small people, whatever you call them, don't know about things, you are sadly mistaken. So
Period.
let me start there. We are in the year 2021. Okay, let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of access to technology and the variety of media we have, y'all need to be starting from the get-go.
Yes,
These people come out, they get here, start.
that's it.
You know what I mean? And so it sounds really dramatic and, oh, I need to wait until the, no,
Mm-mm.
because they can already hear what you're saying. It can even be about how you talk about bodies,
Yes.
how you talk about your own body, how you talk about other people's bodies. Children hear everything,
Mm-hmm.
underline, italicized, bold. Like they hear everything, right? And so you want to be mindful of like what you're saying, how you're saying things,
Mm-hmm.
proper names for body parts. And that is how you can start out sex ed without it being salacious. I think that we hear the word sex ed or teaching kids about sex and all of a sudden becomes something like really like, no,
Mm-hmm.
there is a way to teach sex ed at each stage
Yes.
of life. And if you start with a foundation with, body positivity,
Mm-hmm.
proper names for body parts, body autonomy, all of these things you can teach very, 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 very young.
Yes.
And if you build upon that, then you don't have to have this sit down long, the first time we're talking, they're 16. You know what I mean? We
Let
don't
me
want
just
to.
be clear. If that's the first time, you're too late.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because there's already messaging happening, floating around. By the time you get to 16, everybody's raggedy when you're 16. And people laugh at me when I say that, but I'm like, think about your 16-year-old self. You were raggedy too. And it's fine because you're supposed to be
Yes.
raggedy when you're a teenager because you don't know. You think you know, but you don't know. And so that's when you're just like, oh, my friend said, da, 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 and they raggedy too, because they're also like 15 or. So when I think about sex ed that's comprehensive, I think about the totality of, I think about the foundation and building upon, and I think about the holistic, like it's not just the biology of it.
Right.
It's not just, oh, don't, these boys only want one thing. How many times have we heard that? Okay, well, what is that? What does that mean? Okay, how do I relate to these people?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about it from a holistic perspective. If you are a churchy person, there's still a way to honor your faith
Yes.
and your belief system and still teach sex ed.
Yes.
Like we don't have to stop that if you're churchy too. So I think, from a comprehensive standpoint, that's my take on it,
Mm-hmm.
that, it's appropriate. And even when you get grown, because that's when you start seeing me, you know, you get grown, I'm still helping people unlearn and teaching people like, so it never stops,
Yes.
it's a lot of unlearning,
Yes.
but our goal is to like have you unlearn less maybe by the time you come and see Dr. Nikki or me,
That's right.
you know, so I
I,
think about it from that perspective,
yeah.
and when you're talking about inclusive, I mean inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking inclusive. And I can't tell you how many arguments. I just had a troll, last week? A couple of trolls. Did you see that
Yes, I
post? Like,
did. And I
listen.
was like, people. So let's take just a step before we even get into the details of that. Let's just take a step to what I hear you saying and what I think is so really, like for me, fundamentally important is in that sort of comprehensive way that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What I see a lot of in my practice is I have really just sort of dissected or put aside this whole part of myself because it's never really been attended to, or I
Mm.
never really felt like I had genuine access to explore that or question that or look at that for me. And so now
Yeah.
here I am as an adult, and either I have this internal desire to figure this out or integrate this more in my life, or I'm in this relationship space and we're conflicting around this. We can't make it make sense here, but I don't even have like the tools, the language. Like, it's just a very underdeveloped part of the self. And
Absolutely.
so when I like, and that's why I try to really use the word sexual wellness, because we can talk about spiritual wellness, mental wellness,
Yes.
financial wellness. Ooh, let's
Yes.
add sex in there too, right? Let's
Yes.
integrate it into the whole self. And so then we get to this inclusive part. Um, and this is why I think it's so important, because I was like, people be really, really like wedded to their limited ideas and will want to fight you in these internet streets about their limited ideas.
I just, and I feel like I responded the way I did because I'm like, you know what? What I'm not going to do today,
What I'm not going to do today.
because you're not going to hear me. You know what I mean? Like, it was clear that, okay, I could go back and forth with you.
Mm-hmm.
I could lay out articles. I could tell you about my own research. You are not going to hear what I'm trying to say because you, like you said, you are wedded to that idea that a trans woman somehow takes away from your womanhood. I don't know how that
I don't
happens.
really know, because I didn't get like a packet of
Right.
womanhood,
I just
and I can
listen.
only use so much in my lifetime.
Exactly. And
Nobody
I'm
ever
just
asked me to
like,
share it with them. Like, I
thank
don't.
you. Right. Like, you good. Right. Like, just because somebody is a trans woman, do you identify as a, okay, you're safe. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, the disconnect when I sat down and I was like, I had something typed out and I deleted that whole thing. And that was growth. We gonna give thanks for growth on that
Mm-hmm.
because I was ready to lay in to that person, to that woman, excuse me, because she don't
Yes.
want to be called nothing else but that. Okay, that's fine. That woman, but I was just like, you know what? Okay, be well. And that's all I said because what is the point?
What is the
And
point?
so, and my thing is like, don't think that I give black people a pass either now. Like I get into everybody equal opportunity.
But for me,
I,
that's what the inclusive part really means, right? Like,
yes,
we are all human beings
yes,
with the emphasis on the being, right? And that means, thank God for growth. That means we have the capacity to continue to evolve and grow if we are open to it.
right,
And it also means how each of us comes to our sexuality and our gender identity and our sexual orientation, which are three separate things but co-inform each other. They shift and grow over our lifetime. I think if you're doing it right, because the way I understand myself as a sexual being at 47 is very different than when I was 17 than I was at
mm-hmm,
27.
yeah,
And I'm really excited to see what sis gonna look like at 77. Like, what? How we gonna be
right,
getting it in at 77? What that's gonna look
exactly,
like?
right.
Um, but so that piece of inclusivity gives you the comprehensive perspective. For me, what it really should do is be an invitation for all of us to be curious about ourselves, but also be able to hold a space where we don't judge other folks.
Right. And I think about the concept of liberation, and I find myself in a lot of Black spaces, and we talk about freedom and liberation and things like that. But, and I think you don't achieve that unless you can't, let me phrase it this way. You can't pick and choose who gets free. Maybe that's the easier way to say it.
Yes.
You're not going to pick and choose who gets free according
Yes.
to what you think things should be. Like what, and you know what I mean? And so it's really interesting to see people just automatically shut down
Mm-hmm.
or automatically. And so I'm constantly challenging people, and sometimes it seems like I pick on like cis men specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to deal with a lot of Black cis men
Okay.
specifically. Um, I mean, whether it's like somebody I know or somebody that was referred to me by somebody they know, whatever, whatever. And so I often have to start with the difference between sex, gender, orientation. You know, sometimes I have to start there.
Yeah.
So like, what are we really talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure out what we're really talking about. And then from there, sometimes I just keep asking the question, why?
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, why is that? Why is that your response?
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody say, well, if a gay man hit on me, that he was like acting like he was going to beat somebody up. Why is that your first response? Well, da, da, da. But why is like violence is your first response?
Right. Right.
What do you do if someone you're not interested in, like, what do you do? Oh, okay, why don't you just do the same thing? Like, I don't understand. What's the difference?
What's the
You know what I
difference?
mean?
Yep.
You're still straight. It's fine. If you're still a man, like, I don't
Again,
understand. You know
it's
what
not a
I mean?
volume that like you don't get your allotment of straightness that run out.
Right. And so I talk to people a lot, to your point, Dr. Nikki, about this spectrum and how things change over time, and that if really tap in and are intentional about, your journey overall,
Yeah.
not just sex, that you'll find so many things out about yourself. And you don't stop learning. I'm deeply in this space and I'll be like, oh, I didn't know I like that. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting,
Yes. Yeah.
and so you have to allow space and grace for those things to happen, though. But oftentimes we get caught up in our own boxes, whether we created them for ourselves, we were
Mm-hmm.
pushed into one,
Mm-hmm.
or we just never learned anything different, but we stay there.
Yes.
And then you wonder why, your sex ain't the bomb, or, you bored, or you just feeling the same where you were 10 years
Yep.
ago. And I just don't want anyone to be where they were 10 years ago. I just don't.
I don't. And so that brings so this is for me how the pieces of education and sexual satisfaction, sexual joyfulness fit together. Because the less educated you are, the less informed you are, really the more limitations you're putting on yourself about what you even have access to. And then if you can't explore the range of things you have access to, you may never figure out what is that thing that like,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't know that was it for me, or I didn't
Yeah.
know I could experience my own body in that particular way.
Yeah.
And then when we start really thinking about like people that are partnered, you're also sort of impairing your partner's ability to have the most expressive
Mhm.
experience, or for you both to, or whatever your polycule configuration is, right? For
Mhm.
you all to really experience intimacy at a really high level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's not to say that every sexual experience is this, like, there's not angels singing with harps playing every time.
Right.
But I get real basic. Like if I want a meal, I might enjoy some chicken nuggets and be satisfied. But I also would really enjoy like a lobster tail. I can have both. Like they both
Right.
satisfy.
Exactly. Yes, and right.
Yes, and
Yes, and
for sure.
absolutely. Yeah. And I just think, we just are all better people collectively, individually, when we do the work to figure that stuff out.
I agree.
And I understand that a lot of us have trauma that we hold on to,
Mm-hmm.
that things weren't always great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you're worth it to figure those things out and to uncover
Absolutely.
those things, to get to the other side of that thing, work through that thing, whatever it is. Um, because we don't realize how connected our sexual selves are to every other part of us,
Yeah.
right? And I think we compartmentalize sex and sexuality, that sexual part of ourselves, away from everything, as if that's over there. And then, oh yeah, my mental health. Okay, but if your mental health is suffering, okay, tell me how the
Right.
sex comes, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Um, if you have a disability, that's going to alter how you perceive yourself, possibly,
Hmm.
how other people perceive you, who you are partnered with, how the work, like all of this stuff
Yes,
connects together.
it
So
does.
I think that's why I tell people you're worth it to figure it out. You really
Hmm.
are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. So talk to me, like in your work, what are like some of the biggest myths that you hear? Or maybe not even myths, but just stuff that is just wrong. Like if you could flip a switch today and this thing was never said again, what are some of the things that you hear that are just utterly ridiculous slash just make you want to throw your hands up?
Make me want to holler, right?
Yes.
How much time do we have? No, I'm just
Right.
kidding. Um, well, I will say because I also work in the HIV world, there
Yes.
is still a lot of stigma around HIV and how people acquire HIV,
Mhm.
what that means for a person who has HIV,
Mhm.
um, as well as any other STI as well.
Mhm.
The whole notion that we still apply a moral judgment. Maybe that's what I'm
Absolutely.
thinking. We
Hmm.
still apply a moral judgment to um, with people living with HIV.
Hmm.
Um, and so I even see that with some people coming to test because I ask everybody the same questions. I ask about your pronouns, and some people will, and I'll just wait until, and I was like, and I'll just say all the pronouns. So, until you answer. And I
Hmm.
ask, have your partners been male? Have your partners been female? Have your
Hmm.
partners been trans men, trans women? And some of the looks I get, and I just have a straight face. One, because I'm unbothered,
Right.
and two, because this is how you normalize these things.
Yes.
You know what I
And
mean?
I
You
remember the
know?
first time it clicked for me that when everybody shares their pronouns, that really is the power of like, oh, I get it. Because if we do it and it's all commonplace, then that what that sends then is a message that we all have gender. And so then I'm not otherizing your gender that is not cis. And I was like, got it, easy now, done. My
Thank you. Right. And so I try to do that, in the language that I use, which brought out the trolls because I said, what did I say? People with vulvas or vulva owners. I
yes.
think I said for that specific post, I was talking about cervical cancer screening. And so, so I was just extra annoyed that day anyway,
Right,
but
right.
but even normalizing language like that to get people thinking like, oh yeah, okay. So when she says vulva owner, she's okay, I see what she's saying because that also includes trans men.
Yes.
That also includes non-binary people who have vulvas. Okay, I get it. I connected it.
Right.
So I'm gonna keep talking and I may have to say a few extra words, or you may be like, what are you talking about now?
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as I say it. So I think things like that, like gender and all of that, like if people don't stop dismissing other people's gender identities, I just think I just get automatically irritated. Like I've actually had to cut somebody off for that because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you just don't get it. Like what you're saying is not funny. It's never going to be funny.
Right.
And you know what I mean?
Right.
Like just trying to be flippant about someone's lived experience. What are you doing?
Right. And why?
At your big age, what are you doing? You too
It's a big
old for
age.
this.
And so that
Ah.
that Chanel is like that's a theme that keeps coming up for me over and over again. Like I really do, like I say all the time, stay in your lane and mind your business. And I don't mean that as a I don't mean it in a defensive way. I mean the more you spend time really attending to yourself, being curious about yourself, being reflective about your behaviors and your choices, holding yourself accountable, the actually the less time you have to be worried about somebody else's, which typically gets you into a place that is none of your business, and
Okay.
it doesn't serve the other person, and it really doesn't serve you. And so, sort of the ways that I think about it is like, the more I got informed about same gender sex, the more
Mm-hmm.
I understood what I had access to as a cis-sexual being, right? Like, I am a cis woman. I am heterosexual, but now I have a way more expansive vocabulary of what I can
Mm-hmm.
do with this vulva than
Mm-hmm.
if I had
Mm-hmm.
not had that education, right? So for me, that's the other thing that comes up when I think about this inclusivity, is that when you really do put everybody's sexual well-being on an equitable platform, it allows everybody to be more expansive, to have more access to be better informed, which to me is ultimately what can give you better sex.
Yes, absolutely. And I think also to your point, like, Pride Month was last month,
Mm-hmm.
and there's all this speak of being an ally. And one, in my opinion, don't at me, whatever, that any of the A's in, LGBTQIA plus, they don't mean ally.
They don't mean ally.
You ain't in it,
And y'all ain't
okay?
the plus
Like,
either. You ain't a plus.
right, you're not in the plus, you're not one of the A's, none of that. So cut it out. Um, you can be an ally quietly. And I think, when if you identify as a straight person who, supports LGBTQ plus community, okay, great. Centering yourself in that's not for you. Don't do that.
Don't
Don't
do
do that.
it.
You know what I mean? And so, and another thing that I get irritated about, and I've done a lot of boundary setting, which have disappeared some people over the
Mm-hmm.
past couple of years, but I noticed that a disconnect between, oh yeah, I have a gay friend, but
Mm-hmm.
not accepting gay people in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Make it make sense for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
have to ask somebody like, okay, but my homeboy, he's gay, he's cool or whatever, but it's just not natural. Skirt, skirt. That's where you lost me.
Yeah.
Let me pull the thing. This is where I get off the train right here. I don't understand what you're saying to me right now. And so
Right.
I made him explain it to me, and it just didn't make sense. And then had the audacity, Dr. Nikki, to suggest that, oh, yeah, but if you wanted to ever bring another woman, I went off.
Excuse me. Excuse me, sir. I can't be hearing
When
that
I
correct.
say I went up one side and down the other, I was like, okay, so if you're centered and you think you're gonna get something out of an experience, then it's cute and that's when it's cool. But
Mm-hmm.
when it's your homeboy, yeah, he cool and you can hang out, but like it just doesn't connect
It
for
does.
me, and
Right.
I can't do that kind of mental gymnastics, so I'm gonna just leave you be over there.
Yes.
I cannot help you. When I hear the words unnatural and things like, that's when I just do,
Yeah. We out.
do.
I'm good.
Right, right. That's what I just cannot. So it's just that disconnect that people have with, anything that's not heteronormative or cisnormative, that I'm just like, I just wish I would just get free from that.
Yes.
Ah!
Yes. Like, and mind your own business. Like, it really, someone else's gender, their bodies, their orientation to their bodies, who they are attracted to romantically, who they are attracted to sexually, it don't have a whole lot to do with you. It just really does not.
Minding my business is my favorite hobby.
I love it.
And
Is
people
that a
laugh
t-shirt? I
when
feel
I
like
say
that should
that,
be
but
a t-shirt, or it should be a t-shirt.
I'm like, minding my own little black business is the best thing I do. And the
Yes.
thing is, like, if you tell me If you choose to tell me something, I'm here for it. I can hear you, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go look for information for you. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm just not. That's why I don't know nothing about nobody unless you tell me. Because I just really love minding my business. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah. I love it, love it, love it. So then those are like the things that are like that make you want to holler. What about this work in the sexual wellness, sexual education field? As a Black woman in this field, centering Black people in this area, what brings you joy? Like, what are the things that you love about it that you thrive in?
Sure. Though this work can be very challenging, i.e., the things we just talked about,
Mhm.
when somebody though gets it and it clicks for them, hey,
Ah.
I want to get to twirling and shouting in here because I'm like, okay, you made that connection, or you see how this is important, or you see how this, relates to your life or someone
Mhm.
else's life, like that get it moment. And I think that's the educator thing,
Yeah.
when somebody gets it and you're like, yes,
Yes.
all right,
Uh-huh.
I love that. I also love that I'm seeing more Black femmes being just doubling down on some joy and some like, this is what you gonna get. This is who
Yep.
I am. Die mad. I don't care. Like, I'm seeing a lot more of that energy,
Yes.
and I'm here for it.
My
I am
poster, my
so here
poster
for
girl for
it.
that these days is Chloe Bailey.
I was just about to mention
Baby, I
her.
stand for Chloe Bailey. You better get your whole Black sexy
Listen, I
life,
just be wanting to
girl.
throw something like, oh, you better. Like, and so I think I retweeted something either today or yesterday. Like, y'all were loving on Chloe Bailey until she started embracing her sexual self. And then now you're mad? Make it make sense. Now you're telling me something about your beliefs and
Yes.
what you think by you having an attitude about her being her normal 20 something self. I wish I had that much confidence at 20 something. Sometimes I need it now.
Baby, I would have been a whole problem. I
Listen,
would have been a whole problem.
y'all would have had to pull me to the side and have some talks with me because I would have been out here for real. You know what
Yes.
I mean? But like, I love it because why not?
Yes.
Why not? And I feel like those of us who get it, we're rooting for her.
Yes.
And, like ultimately, Chloe's good. Like, she's got
Hmm.
a system around her. Like, Chloe Bailey is good. I'm here for Chloe Bailey. Sign me up for the president of the fan club. Me and you, Dr. Nikki,
We
we
got
can
like
we can work
legit.
out the meeting schedules on Zoom. Like, we can
Yes.
figure out. But I am seeing a lot more Black femmes specifically being more comfortable in their bodies. And that doesn't necessarily mean showing more of their bodies, just being comfortable how you exist. You can show your body, not show your body, and you can still be comfortable. And I think we also have to get away from that too.
Yes.
This whole notion of like what sexy looks like,
Hmm.
what sexuality looks like, what a sensual person, a proud person looks like, can look like 1 zillion things because there are 1 zillion people, right? So,
Because it actually for the biggest thing for me with that makes me wanna is the underlying message is you think that there's some um uh objective indicator of who is worthy of
mm,
pleasure and who isn't, who deserves sex and who doesn't, based
yep,
on the body type. Like
yep,
how that work? How?
mm-hmm,
You listen, this 47-year-old body is what it is. And I it has been an ongoing focus for me to be able to continue to find comfort and joy and
yeah,
um like happiness in my body in the
mm,
variety of different ways and shapes it has taken on. So you
yeah,
don't get to then dictate to me how I use it, what I do with it. No, it's
at
mine.
all. And folks, stay policing other folks. Mind your business. When I say that could solve a whole lot of drama by minding your business, hey, come on
So much.
now.
Come
Like,
on. I agree. I agree. Um,
um,
as we are winding down, I just want to use this as an opportunity. Um, what like who are your inspirations? Who do you follow? Who are your go-to sort of sources of education? Books that you've read? Who are your sheroes? All of that stuff. What are the things that when you're like, now why I do this again? You intentionally go to those sources. Who are your touchstones around this stuff?
sure. So some like OG, triple OGs that I started out with. I'm looking over here because I'm looking at the books.
Yeah.
There are, of course, like Race, Class, and Gender by
Mm-hmm.
Angela Y. Davis.
Mm-hmm.
There are Things That Your Mother Never Told You About Sex by Dr. Oh my gosh.
I can't think of it either, but I know I
You
have
know
it.
exactly who I'm talking about
Yes.
too. And of course I hit a blank right then. Um, but yeah, I have Paula Giddens over there. I have
Ah,
Patricia Rose over
yes.
there.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
at your
like
bookshelf.
yeah, I have bell hooks. I mean, there's just a lot of, layering that I did with my reading because I just really wanted to like figure out things and
Yeah.
just like get some perspective on things. And yeah, those books have really helped as far as like some groundwork foundational
Mhm.
things as far as like who I just follow. What I love about being a Black woman in this space is that like all of us follow each other, and so it's a very
Yeah.
it's a very tight knit community. So I could name off a lot of like femme and non-binary Black educators. Like I mean, there's Goody, there's Brittany, there's Dr. Ashley Towns, there's the Minority Sex Report, Dr. Shamika,
Mhm.
Gabrielle. I mean, there's just like a zillion people. Tanya. I mean, just I don't
Yeah.
even. There's
Yeah.
so many. And Dr. Donna. I mean, there's just like,
Yeah.
and I love that. No, none of us do exactly the same thing. And that's so fascinating to me. And I think that's one thing that, people ask for advice and, oh, aren't there some? Yes, and none of us look the same or sound the same or do exactly the same thing.
That's it.
You have some people who are faith-based, like Brittany Broaddus
Yes.
and Dr. Lisette Cross. They're more faith-based,
Yeah.
and you have other people who may do a little bit more blogging or a little bit more
Hmm.
like centered around sex toys or a little bit more. Some people are researchers. Like it's just
Yes.
you're not going to get the same voice. So I'm like, follow everybody
That's it.
because you're not going to get the same voice. Yes, we may all be Black. We may all identify as femme. There are some people who are non-binary. But like,
Yeah.
it's just amazing to see what everybody does and like how um, the different voices. I think that's one of my favorite parts. It's just, like, wow,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. And I think part of it for me is that, and um, there is a real sort of we're all rooting for each other, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
all recognize the individual brilliance, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the way that you can communicate. We might be giving the same message, but how you communicate it might hit different for somebody else, or and I'll be like, "Dang, yes, that is a great way to say
Exactly.
that." um,
Exactly. I mean, case in point, I think Dr. Lex James posted about a new opportunity that she has, and underneath half the comments were us.
yes,
Like,
yep,
yes, I see you, yes, yes,
yeah,
just all in the comments. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? And she's a powerhouse. You have Dr. Tracy, who has like a podcast, and
right,
so she'll have different people. I'm like, oh, yes, I do like that person. Let me listen.
yes.
So everybody does different things. So, yeah, that's
And
why like don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. Do
do not
what you
get
gonna
stuck.
do. Yeah.
And I will just add to that energy we were talking. You mentioned about like Black Sims. Um, just standing fully in their sexual power and the recognition that we have access to our erotic, like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not a privilege.
Audre
We don't have to
Lorde.
earn it, huh?
Audre Lorde.
Audre Lorde, like
Yeah,
she is my goat.
the power of the erotic. Yes.
But that we are in a time and a space where we can have these conversations in open forums, and that people can come through and get a little nugget. That
Yeah.
we're really like shedding light on the fact that no, this is our sexuality is not something that's off in the distance. It's not something tucked away. It's not something that we have to hide. It doesn't take away from my power. It doesn't take away from my intellect. It doesn't take away from my capacity to be connected to my community. In fact, it empowers all of those things.
Yes. Yes.
And we're going to
Yes.
keep talking about it.
Right, we not gonna shut up. So yeah, either you log out of all of social media altogether and never log back in, or I don't know what to tell you.
I don't
We
really know
are
what else
here.
to tell you. I love it. I have enjoyed this time with you thoroughly.
Me too,
I
yes.
hope it's just the beginning of a conversation and just the beginning of ways that we can continue to support each other. If there's anything I can ever do to support you in your PhD process and whatever the evolution of Jolly Company looks like, definitely know that I am here for you and for that.
Thank you so much. I will be pulling on everybody with a PhD. Like, okay, how am I do this?
Yeah.
'Cause
So I'm gonna tell you just real quick. It ain't nothing but hype. Like, there is not a Black woman PhD that I know that hasn't walked in the space and immediately be like, oh, this what y'all was. You really gonna be like, this is
Ah, okay, right.
okay. Like,
Well, that's good to know because I'm like, ooh, I think we think about it as such a very like super daunting, and I'm not dismissing that like it's gonna be work and I have to like focus. And also that, okay, I got this. Like,
you absolutely do. So this is
yeah.
the way I think about it. It's like, yes, there is you want to be in a program that has rigor, right? You want to be in a program that has standards and expectations. And your lived experiences that made you competitive enough to get into the space prepares you in a way that your white peers and counterparts aren't.
Yeah.
And so your walk through the process is different. I have, in my experiences, and I was an academic for 17 years of my career, and I graduated 10 Black woman PhDs plus a couple other folks of color along the way. And the struggle was never about the content or the material. It was about navigating the system.
Yeah. Okay.
So
okay.
my advice is always like, don't get caught up. You know how to navigate systems. This is nothing but a new and a different one. You're going to go in there, figure out who the players are.
Yeah.
What is allowed, what isn't. And then you're going to find the middle space for Chanel Jolie in between those things.
Yes, come on, affirmation. I received that. All right. I'm not tripping.
Do.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank everybody for being with us live. When I close this out, we're going to go ahead and upload it to my IGTV. I'm going to make sure that I tag Jolie Co so that all of her followers have access to it. If you are not already following her, follow her at JAALI_CO. Get you some good nuggets. I enjoy your platform because it's a really beautiful mix for me of like irreverent, sort of like sassy, funny, and then also like, hey, no, we talking about real business too. So
I appreciate that.
It's a good blend, a good mix. And
I appreciate that's who I am in real life. So
yes, in real life. And then you can follow me at Dr. Nikki Knows, DrNikkikKIKNOWS. And I look forward to seeing you all out in these social media streets.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Nikki. Y'all keep being amazing.
Yes, this was wonderful. Bye.